Hello, and welcome to Rob from the Internet Talks About Beer, a show where we discuss different styles of beer, beer history, beer flavor profiles. We give shout outs to breweries we think make exceptional beer, and we talk about whatever else happens to come up during the course of the conversation. I'm Rob from the Internet. Let's talk about beer. All right, so joining me today is Roger Mittag. He's someone who I follow on Twitter, and he seems to be a font of knowledge when it comes to beer. And I was happy when he agreed to be on the show. So if you would, Roger, introduce yourself. Tell me how you got interested in craft beer and what you do when you're not talking to people like me about craft beer.
Oh God. Yeah, I am Roger Mittag, and Rob pronounced it Mittag, which is the German pronunciation, which I like. I don't hear that very often. And I own a company called Thirst for Knowledge, which is a beer education company. And within that, we have PRUD'HOMME beer certification, which is our multi-level beer sommelier program. I personally think it's the best in the world, but I am a touch biased. You asked how I got into craft beer, and I should say I got into beer at an early age. My dad enjoyed his beer, and he was German, so I got to try it when I was very young. And then, gradually as you hit the age of majority, you drink what was around, and it was primarily, the regular stuff that we had back in the 70s and 80s. I was really, really lucky. In 1997, I was shifting careers, and I landed with a company called the Olin Specialty Beer Company, and it was a specialty division of Labatt at that time, and was really a micro version of Interbrew. And so we were tasked with selling things like Alexander Keith's, Stella Artois, all the Left products, Hoegaarden, all these really intricate and cool imported Belgian beers. And my training was unbelievable, the amount of information that they gave us. And it just really lit a fire under me to enjoy really good beers. So along the way, I've been able to watch the craft industry grow from virtually nothing, maybe brick brewing, back in those days, to, well over 350, probably over 400 breweries in Ontario now, and well over 1,000 in Canada. So it's a really interesting evolution that I've been able to witness, and I'm really enjoying a lot of the beers. I think brewers are making great beers these days. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to make a great beer. Sometimes it takes a year or two before you're really into the groove. Mm-hmm. But I'm really enjoying it. I'm not always fond of every particular style, but I'm loving what's going on. So
that's awesome. It's funny that you should mention brick brewing. I actually know Jim Brickman. He is a consultant for Schooner Brewing, the shirt I'm wearing today. He's got a new venture called Rocket Hop, where he is making schnapps from beer, which is fantastic. And dude, the product is amazing.
Yeah, I'll bet. Yeah, he's a great guy. I've only met him once. He's a wealth of knowledge and a very innovative person.
And dude, he is so about the process. I mean, for him it is you do this to get this, and he's got the numbers and he's got everything. He can pull stuff out of his head that I would have to sit down and calculate, if I'm looking, and he's like, oh, you just do it like this, this, and this. And it's like, wow, it's amazing. And that's great because, he is helping the Schooner Street Brewery guys, do their brewing and come up with their process. So they're going to make fantastic beer, which is for everybody.
I'm so glad that he's back in the industry in some way, shape, or form, because he was gone for a long period of time, and we miss people like that. We miss people with history and depth of knowledge, and I think that's a really cool thing that guys like him are sticking around.
Yeah, no, it is, and it's great because that, like you said, that wealth of knowledge, getting it passed down to newer brewers is fantastic because then it doesn't get lost along the way. That's the worst part is if someone who like Jim who makes good beer and has and knows the process in and out. When their knowledge doesn't get passed on, that's a loss for everybody.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. All right. So you said you had a lot of stuff with Belgians and stuff. Is that your favorite style of beer?
It might be my favorite country. I mean, I
Okay.
have an affinity towards German beers simply because of my background, but I also think they make amazingly qualitative beers.
They do.
Um, the Germans were somewhat hampered by the Purity Act, and the Belgians weren't really hampered. So I'm enamored with the thought process and the complexity of most Belgian beers.
Okay.
So, and I've been over there multiple times, for personal adventures, but also for business and work. And it never ceases to amaze me. I mean, when we started out in '97, they used to talk about it being the land of beer, and beer was important to a Belgian as wine would be to someone from France or Italy. And when you go over there, you grasp that really quickly.
Yeah, I've never been. It's on my list of places to go. So
Yeah. If you really want to go try to plan. I doubt it will happen this year, but next year they have an amazing celebration in Brussels called Beer Weekend. And it's a beer festival that's held in the Grand Place in Brussels, and it's done on Labor Day weekend.
oh, nice.
And they march the beer in, and every major brewery is there. All the Trappists are there, and you don't get shitty plastic sampling cups. You actually get small branded glassware
Oh, that's cool.
everywhere you go, and you just give it back. They give you a coin, and you give it back, and then you get a next one at the next place. It's unbelievable experience.
Very cool. Yeah. So like you, I've been drinking beer, and I was exposed to beer very early. I'm a German by heritage. I'm only second generation born in North America, so majority of my family actually still lives in Germany. So beer was always a thing. My grandfather and my grandmother on my dad's side had beer. We had it, anytime we were visiting, lunch, dinner, sometimes breakfast. Grandma was cooking in the kitchen. If you came in and you weren't bringing her a beer, you were ushered right back out of the kitchen. So, and then I have an uncle who was a brewer for Coors in Golden, Colorado. So I mean, beer
Cool.
it's in my family, and it's something that I've enjoyed for years. And I'm a home brewer, so I've been brewing on and off for 15 years myself. So I enjoy all the different styles because I like beer and I like to experiment and see how far I can push my knowledge and my boundaries. So
That's cool.
um,
I love it.
yeah. So today we're going to be talking about Belgian beer. We're going to be talking about Flanders Reds, sometimes also called a Flemish Red Brown. Um, so it's a sour ale. Typically, it's soured with lactobacillus as opposed to Saccharomyces. From what I've learned, and there might be some that use something else, but primarily it seems to be lactobacillus is what's used in the souring process, and it's typically aged for long periods of time. So you're talking a year or more for it to get that nice mellow flavor that you expect from it. I mean, it's still going to be sour and it's going to have a bit of bite to it, but it's not like it's not overly acidic and it's not overly biting when you drink it. At least from my experience from what I've had. They tend to have a strong fruit flavor and a similar aroma. So you're, typically it's like what prunes and raisins, maybe dates and figs. You're going to get that kind of stuff out of it. You might get some citrus out of it, like orange, or you might get some floral flavors out of it, like so like rose hips or things like that. And you might pick up, because it is a Belgian, you might pick up some of the spiciness which you typically get from Belgian beers. So you might get a little bit of coriander, you might get a little bit of black pepper, things like that. So it's a favorite style of mine. And to be honest, I hadn't ever really done any research into it. It was just one of those beers that I'd pick it up and I'd enjoy it. And it was kind of interesting doing my research to find out, oh, well, this is probably why I enjoy it, because I really enjoy like doubles and quads that have that prune and fig and date and that sweet kind of body to them. So, it makes sense that this is one I like.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really cool style. It's interesting that you talked about lactobacillus and Saccharomyces. Saccharomyces is a yeast, and typically the yeast strains that they're using in Belgium, especially with Flanders. So when you're making lambic beers, you would just open the windows and the doors and let the yeast come in naturally. So that's typically Brettanomyces yeast, and they're known as wild yeast, and they create this real funky barnyard kind of characteristic.
Right.
So the thing with Flanders beers is they use Brettanomyces yeasts, but they use it in a controlled condition. So they'll actually add it as opposed to allowing nature to do its thing. And then the lacto is bacteria that's created once they put it into the barrels. So it's not like they're taking a ton of lactobacillus and adding it. Typically the souring is coming because they're aging it in a barrel.
Gotcha. Where it's exposed to a little more nature.
Yeah, and it's open. A lot of it's open air, so you're getting a little bit of the bacteria that's fitting in there, and you're 100% bang on that they're aged, because they're typically blended beers. So you get beers that are like Rodenbach has a variety of different blends in the styles that they're making or the varieties that they're making. Duchesse de Bourgogne is slightly different. It's got a little different characteristic to it, but I've got both of them here, so we can chat about those.
Nice. So could you repronounce the Duchess one? Because I always pronounce it incorrectly.
Yeah, Duchesse de Bourgogne.
See, it just gets lost in my head. I'm like, I don't know, it's Duchess born something or other, and they always know what I'm talking about, and they're like, yeah. This is the one you want.
Listen, Duchess is fine. I'm pretty sure the guys that are selling it could care less if you call it Duchess or Duchesse. So I think it's fine. I've got the glassware here with me as well, so we can talk a little bit about why each of these brands has got, because I'm going to pour them into two glasses, and then we can talk a little bit about them, but talk about why they've chosen those glasses to represent their particular brands.
Yeah, I just have a standard tulip glass, because that's typically what I use to drink Flanders or any Belgian beer. Really, I put it in a tulip.
That's a good glass. I like that glass. So it has a lot of capabilities to it.
Yeah, if I'm not using, if I have three of these, and if they're all dirty, then I switch over to a Teku because it's a similar shape.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Also a nice glass.
Yeah, so I have a local. This is Forked River Flanders Barrel Aged Flanders Red. It's a 2018, so it's a few years old. I've got a 2016 and a 2017 in the cooler as well. So
good luck getting that wax off.
I got most of it off already. So
you know what? There's a couple of breweries in Ontario that make amazing Flanders Reds. Forked River is one of them, and Royal City in Guelph makes an amazing Flanders Red as well. And there's not a lot of others that are doing that. A lot of people are doing, what we're calling kettle souring now. So they're adding lactobacillus into kettles, and then they're not aging it up to 2 years in wooden barrels, which. What you were talking about earlier, Rob, is the thing about Flanders beers is they tend to be really well balanced. They have a lot of complexity, but you were saying that they don't have a ton of acidity, that it comes in really nicely, and that's the thing that I like about both Royal Cities and Flanders and Forked River is they are really well balanced beers.
Yeah, I love Royal City.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah, look at that. You got to double fist it. That's the kind of gumption I like for the show.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go back and forth so I can figure it out. You can see, from my glass that the Rodenbach is quite a bit lighter than the Duchesse.
Yeah. Yeah. And Rodenbach makes fantastic beers. I actually, it was when we bought this house, 3.5 years ago. A friend of ours who's an architect helped us do the designs for the reno, and he gave me a 2013 Rodenbach.
Wow.
that he had just had sitting on the shelf, and he's like, you know what? And we cracked it open while he was here, and it was a fantastic beer. I mean, it was like,
No kidding.
if I could have got a case of that and put it in the cooler, I would have been drinking it for 24
Yeah,
days.
yeah.
But
Cheers.
yeah, so yeah, cheers. So this one's kind of a light coppery brown color. It's slightly hazy, which from my understanding is acceptable in the beer. It doesn't necessarily have to be completely clear, although it does range from completely clear to slightly hazy in the style guide. And it's got some medium bubbles coming up through it. Nothing crazy. It's not like overly carbonated like you get some like Berliner Weiss and things like that, where they have a whole bunch of bubbles coming up. This just has light to medium bubbles coming up, and
Yep.
it's got a fantastic aroma. You can tell as soon as you put your nose over it that it is a sour. There's no disguising it. It's got that typical sour ale kind of aroma. But I am getting the dark fruits. I'm getting like plum and raisin from it. So it's making my mouth water.
Well, you shouldn't let your mouth water too long. Yeah, if you a lot of the major Belgian producers make sure that their beers are clear. So style guidelines have changed a lot because a lot of craft brewers don't filter to the same degree that traditional breweries do.
Right.
And that's okay. I think that you just have to take into consideration. I mean, when we started drinking beer, the two of us probably, if you saw cloudy beer, you'd say it was bad and you'd send it back. But nowadays, we understand that a little bit of haziness in a beer, or even cloudiness in beer, is actually quite beneficial because it adds a little bit more body and flavor to it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's true. So, like, if you're a person who typically drinks, say, one of the big macros, Miller, Coors, Budweiser, Molson, whatever, those beers are traditionally and for the most part always crystal clear. You can see right through them. And I'm not knocking it, but they don't have a lot of body. They are designed to be refreshing beers, not necessarily flavorful beers.
Yep. No, and that's the way I like to look at it as well. I try not to ever tell anybody that what they're drinking is the wrong thing. I think people have to make their own choices. But if you choose those beers, you're choosing it because you want something thirst quenching and easy to drink, and not necessarily because it's got tons of body to it. But these sours are amazing. These Flanders Reds, because like you said, the acidity is there, but it varies in what kind of acidity you're looking for. So with some of the newer ones, what we tend to find is a lot of almost sour candy, whereas these ones are typically more on the cider vinegar sour or the balsamic side of it sour. And when you're talking about all the dark fruits, I mean, it's really easy to smell Duchesse de Bourgogne or even the Forked River that you have, and a lot of balsamic. So you think about the fig and the dates characteristics that you're getting. The Rodenbach, not quite balsamic, but more sour cherry. And so you tend to get almond and sour cherry quite a bit off of all of the Rodenbachs.
Yeah, that's what I found as well. The Rodenbach tends to be more like, at least for me, I didn't get a whole lot of almond, but almond's one of those flavors that I really have trouble picking up if it's not the primary flavor. But with the Rodenbachs, I do get the sour cherry, and it's it's one of those. It's like, once you taste it, you're like, this is the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. And the other thing that I would really suggest, and I'll talk a little bit about the glassware in a second, but I would suggest especially with Flanders sours, you have to pour them, let them open up a bit. They're almost like red wines where you need a bit of oxidation. You need them to open up and breathe, because then what happens is some of that acidity just tones down, and then it becomes really thirst quenching, because acidity in mild versions is quite drying in your mouth and very thirst quenching, and it actually makes you want more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I drink this and I want more. So I've actually never had this one before. It's the first time I've had the Forked River. And it's just been sitting there waiting for someone to drink it. And this was the perfect opportunity. And it's a damn fine beer. I mean, I've had several other beers from Forked River, and I've never been disappointed by their beers. and I wasn't expecting to be disappointed, but I wasn't expecting this level of flavor from this.
Yeah, you're lucky that you have that. I mean, and that's a 2018. That wouldn't sit in my house for very long. So, but the good thing is that there are some beers that age really, really well, and that's one of them. So, with sour beers, and what's the alcohol content on that? It's got to be
7.3 is what it says.
Yeah. So high alcohol and acidity actually make for good aging. So you can get some nice life out of that. It's going to change slightly from being fresh to new. The acidity is probably a little softer.
Yeah, it is. It's very it's
Yeah.
there, but it's not like punch you in the mouth sour. It's
Yeah.
you take a drink, you open your mouth, and then it's like, here's the sour.
Yeah. This is the Duchesse. This is big ass acidity right up front. Like you can smell tons of balsamic on this one. And when you take a sip, there's almost an acidic burn going down your throat. So this one, when I do it in classes, I always tell people it's a different thing to taste it now than it is in 5 minutes, because what happens is the acidity tends to drop a little bit. And then all that complexity you were talking about with the dark fruits, that tends to show up.
Right. Well, and I found that with a lot of the Belgian beers, they say that they're whatever their serving temperature is, anywhere from 7 to 12 degrees Celsius, which is anywhere from 40 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit for my friends who are not metric friendly. They're good, but if you let them warm up just a little bit beyond that, they really open up. Like I recorded a show 2 days ago with a couple of guys who do a beer podcast, and one of them had never had Chimay before in his life.
Oh,
And we did Chimay Red, so the double. And he's like, no, I mean, sorry, it was Chimay Blue. It was the strong
quad.
the quad, yeah. And he'd never had anything from it, and he's like, I've never had Chimay. He was a little bit afraid when we first started, and he drank it, and it just, I mean, you could see it on his face. His eyes just opened up, and he was like, wow, this is an amazing beer. And that's what this show is all about. And it's cool when a guest hasn't had a style of beer, they try it and they're like, oh my God, this is something I'm going to add to my tool belt.
Yeah, I think anything that you can do to help people open their eyes is a fantastic thing for the beer industry. I've been in the beer industry since '97, and it's the thing that drives me, and I want to see it continue to grow and prosper. But we just have to help people to understand a little bit more, right?
We do, and that's one of the biggest things is I've been the guy who shows up at a party with 3 bottles of beer, talking to the guy who shows up with the 30-pack of Corona. And by the end of the night, the guy leaves half his 30-pack of Corona behind, and he's taken one of my beers.
Oh God!
True story. 4 or 5 years ago, I went to a cookout at a friend's house, and this guy showed up with a 30-pack of Corona, and he's like, "I brought this," and I brought 3 bottles of different beers. They were all from different craft breweries, but they were all double-digit ABV. And he's like, "Oh, you only brought 3 beers." I'm like, "Yes, but these 3 beers have more alcohol than your entire 30-pack does in each bottle." And he's like, "Oh, I don't like craft beer, blah 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 blah." And I gave him one, and one of them happened to be a triple, and he drank it, and he's like, "I didn't know beer could taste like this."
No.
It's because people grow up with here's what my dad drank, here's what my grandpa drank, so that's what I drink, and they don't experiment, and they try something new, and it's always amazing when someone tries something new and you just see it on their face that, wow, I didn't know beer could be like this.
Yeah, you're describing that whole concept of when the light goes on, right? Like because I mean, there's so many things that you can do with beer as well. If you teach people how to pour it properly, or like you were saying, the right temperature is so important, and the right glass is so important. That it's that epiphany that people have when they sit there and their eyes get opened up and they go, "I had no idea."
Yeah.
I had a fun experience one time. I was doing a beer and food tasting with people at the beer markets, and we had gone through this whole tasting. And the one thing that they had on the menu, these Belgian waffles that had flambéed bananas and some creme fraiche on it, so some whipped cream. And I paired it with Budweiser. And when they almost everybody did that, they laughed and they said, "Are you like you're out of your mind?" And I said, "Maybe, but maybe you should just try it because let's see what happens." And it blew their minds because they had no idea that you could A, pair Bud with anything, and
Other than
B,
like a hot dog from a stadium.
yeah. But the interesting thing is Budweiser's got lots of banana aromatics. And so it just made the transition really, really easy. So you just sort of had these things sort of go together. But again, you know, it's fun when you can help people to see the light.
It really is, and that's the entire purpose of this series of videos, is to just try and help people realize that there's more out there than what you might be drinking, and it's nothing to be afraid of. You know, you can go to a craft brewery, you can go to just about any craft brewery that has a tasting facility, and you can ask for a sample, and 9 times out of 10 they'll give you just a tiny little bit, so you can say, "Here, I want." Oh, yeah, I'm not sure this is something I'm going to like, you know, or you might be like, oh yeah, now this is something I might actually like, and you'll try a bigger pour. So I mean, that's the beauty of it, and a lot of people are afraid. I mean, there's no other word for it. They're afraid to step outside that comfort zone, that little box that they've put themselves in for beer.
Yeah. I think, you know, we're starting to break those things down. I think, you know, people are still, like you said, a little afraid of stepping outside that comfort zone. But it's happening. And a lot of the craft breweries, you know, even though a few years ago everybody would have had an IPA, a lot of the craft breweries are making lighter tasting beers now. So they're making Hellas's and Kolsch's and Pilsners. So they know that they have to appeal to a broader range of people. And I think people to say that they don't like craft beer, they simply haven't found a beer that they like from a craft brewer. And I think, like you said, like they put these thoughts in their brains that, you know, craft beer, like they might have had somebody's shitty homebrew a long time ago. And in their brain, they're going, like craft beer equals that. And what they don't understand is that craft beer is so wide and diverse now that you can find all kinds of different things. Like, you know, I think this whole concept of being afraid, a lot of people, when you talk to them, say, "I don't like sours." Well, maybe, but maybe you haven't had a Flanders Red. Like maybe you don't like that intense sourness from a kettle sour. But maybe you'll like that soft, gentle sourness that's coming from a Flanders Red because it's been aged, and you won't know until you try it. And then all of a sudden your mind opens up that sours are not actually all that bad. In fact, they're quite good.
Right. Yeah. I had a friend who refused to drink Saisons because every time people talk about them, they're like, "Oh, it's got this funky taste," or "It's got this kind of grassy taste." And he's like, "I don't want to feel like I'm drinking lawn clippings." And I'm like, "Dude, it's not like that." And I poured him just, you know, I have a little taster glass. I poured him some. He drank it, and he was like, "This is not what I expected when people say it's funky and it's grassy." I'm like, "No, that's just the closest thing that we can associate it with." I mean, you have to try and describe things in terms that you know, and if all you know is it tastes kind of grassy or it tastes kind of funky, well, you know, that might put some people off, and you got to get them to try it, and then they'll, you know, in their brain they'll taste it, and everybody's palate's different, so they might get a little different experience than you, but they might just be like, "Oh yeah, this is something I could really get into."
I think vocabulary is really important. My wife we were talking, and I was using the term funky and barnyard, and she said, "None of those things sound good to me." And I went, "Okay, I get it, right? Like I get it." So, and the other thing about Saisons, I mean, I love Saisons too. They're so wide and varied now. And there's some really good ones out there. Great Lakes in the past has made a great Saison. I love, again, Royal City's Hibiscus Saison is fantastic.
That's one of my wife's favorites.
Yeah, but I think they're probably not too far from you, but Muse Brewing, they're making a Saison that is absolutely fantastic. Like, and it's very, very true to style. And there's some interesting Saisons in the LCBO right now too. So you can get from Belgium, you can get Saint Fuyenne, and also DuPont. DuPont's a little edgier. St. Fion's got a little bit more sweetness to it, so it's got a little bit more bright fruit. But I I think you're right. I mean, I went to we had a we had a social gathering, believe it or not, about a week and a half ago with some friends, and my wife convinced me to do a beer tasting for these people. And the majority of the people there, that out of the six of us, three of them weren't really big beer aficionados. In fact, one person doesn't drink beer at all. So I took a variety of different beers, and I actually took Rodenbach Sour, the Flanders Red, and the person who doesn't drink beer fell in love with that beer.
Well,
So
I can see that because
yeah,
the Flanders sours, they're very much more. I mean, they lean, for me anyway, they seem to lean more towards like your wines and things like that. They're not your typical beery beer.
no, and I think that's the cool thing is that there are so many beers out there right now that don't actually taste and look like beers, that people start getting out of their brain that they had this bad experience with, a blonde beer 20 years ago that they never got the taste of. They just haven't found the right beer yet.
Right. Yeah. And I very much believe the same thing. One of the things I tell people, who I've talked to and who've asked, hey, I'm looking to try some craft beer. I only drink, I only drink Bud or I only drink Miller. I'm like, well, try a craft beer that's like a Czech Pilsner, or try something that's a blonde ale. It's not going to be that far off the path from what you normally drink, but it's going to be different. It's going to have a little different flavor profile, but it's still going to be familiar enough that you're not going to be, overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's not like taking a trip to Mars, right? Like you're just going around the corner and you're going to try something that's slightly different, but it's close.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I think that's the easiest thing to do with some people.
So you alluded to earlier glassware. You've got two different glasses for two different beers.
Yeah, this one, this is the Rodenbach one. It's called a Gaetan tumbler. So it's got these ribbed edges down on the bottom. So these are designed to keep your hands away from the beer, but it's tall and relatively open, so you can get a bit more aromatics. But this glass is ideally designed for something that's thirst quenching and easy to drink.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see that. This glass looks like a red wine glass, and that's the way it's designed. So these two breweries take two different approaches. In fact, the glass I just showed you for Rodenbach, this one, is really only designed for their classic, not their Grand Cru or their vintage. They have a different glass for that. And that's because, again, this one's supposed to be easy to drink and thirst quenching. So we want to just be able to pour it in here nice and cold, drink it, enjoy it, and it's gone. This one, on the other hand, is very much like the one that you have, where it really wants me to put my hand underneath it, warm it up, and then it's got this big wide open mouth where all the aromatics can come out, but at the same time, it's going to oxidize a little bit. So it treats it more like a red wine than it does something to be enjoyed quickly. So this glass makes you want to savor it. The other glass makes you want to drink it quickly.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, in simpleton terms, one's I'm going to nurse this for a bit, and the other's like, I'm going to pound this one.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And those are good terms. I like those. Like, sometimes, because I've been in this industry a lot, I get caught up in the whole, educational side of it, but sometimes it's just easy to lay the cards down on the table and say, yeah, you can pound this one out of this glass, and you're going to take your time with this one and enjoy it and savor it over a bit of time, or nurse it. I haven't heard nursing in a long time.
Sorry,
that's all right. I like that.
It's one of the terms I use when I have a beer or any drink that I don't want to just like slam back and have it gone. Typical drinks that I do that with are like, my barrel aged imperial stouts and things like that. I'll put those in a glass like this, something that allows the flavor to open up and something that allows it to warm up. And then I'm not just going to slam it back. I'm going to sit there and like it's a cognac or something else, I'm going to kind of swirl it and I'm going to drink it slowly. Slowly. Slower. slower than I would if it was in, say,
Yeah.
like a shaker pint or even a nonic pint where you can just tilt it back and it's gone. So.
Yeah.
All right. So for anybody who might be interested, when you put this up to your nose, you shouldn't really smell a whole lot of alcohol type smell, and you shouldn't and you shouldn't get a whole lot of the hop flavors as well, or aromas as well. I mean, you're going to smell the fruits, and you're going to smell the actual, like the acidity or the sourness of the beer. That's going to hit your nose, but you shouldn't get anything like the hops or anything like that. And if you're drinking it, you're going to get the dark fruit flavors. You might get a little bit, even like you might even pick up some like chocolatey notes or something like that from the malt. Maybe not a whole lot, but just a little bit there to help temper it and to help round out the flavor. Some versions, depending on how long they're aged or how they're blended, they might be more carbonated than others. Because like this one here is very low carbonation relatively compared to other ones I've had, and that might be partly because of it's 3 years old now in the bottle, plus however long it aged in the barrels.
Yeah.
So finish length on it should be like a medium finish. So you drink it, it lingers for a few seconds, and then it's gone, leading you to want more.
Exactly. Those are great ways of describing those beers. Your comments about hops are interesting because that style and a lot of European styles use hops only as a balancing act and as a preservative. They don't use it to feature it. So typically speaking, a lot of Belgian brewers use aged hops. So the hops are very carefully aged, so they don't really have any aromas or flavors. So you're basically only using a little bit to temper the sweetness of the malt and mainly as preservative value.
So food pairings, what are typical things you would pair with say a Flanders Red?
Charcuterie, lots of cheeses with this. You can have a lot of fun with this. This is actually quite a diverse beer. You can do some interesting salads with it because you can use it as part of the salad dressing because it's got that acidity. Mm-hmm. It's fantastic with desserts, especially chocolates. Think about things like Black Forest cake. It's perfect because it draws out more of that cherry characteristic, but it also sort of tempers down some of the richness. Ultimately, unbelievable experience if you have it with a braised short rib or a really nice roast or a good steak. It'll actually work quite well with that as well.
Yeah, a nice rouladen.
Yeah, rouladen. I haven't had one since my mom passed.
Another thing that at least from my experience, it pairs really well with like sweet potato pie. So I would assume it would pair really well with pumpkin pie. I don't really eat pumpkin pie; it's not one of my favorites. But sweet potato pie is one I do like, and they're pretty close to being an analog of each other. So if it pairs with the one, it's probably going to pair with the other. Anything like beef stroganoff, beef bourguignon, things like that. Any of your red meats, basically, steaks and surprisingly, like a really good, a nice thick, juicy burger is going to go really well with this beer as well.
Yeah, especially if it's got maybe some caramelized onions and some mushrooms on it. Like you could have some fun with that.
Typical to the style, this one should be served somewhere between 7 and 10 degrees Celsius, which is 45 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. From like my experience, typically it's a tulip glass, but as you have shown us, it could be a different style. It could be the tumbler style, or it could be a wine glass style, or honestly, drink it if you don't have any of those styles and all you have is a shaker pint. By all means, drink it out of a shaker pint. Just let it sit for a minute or two and let it open up, and you're still going to get a good experience out of it. Maybe not the optimal experience that you'd get with the proper glassware, but you're still a good beer is going to be a good beer no matter what glass you put it in.
That's true. But everybody's got a wine glass, so you can just take that and put it in a wine glass.
Right. Yeah. And that's what we do a lot of the time. If our tulip glasses or our tekus are dirty, is we'll pull out the wine glasses and we'll use those. So
sure.
But examples of breweries that make this style that I found that are pretty good is New Glarus Brewing in Wisconsin makes one called Enigma, which is pretty good.
Oh, cool.
Um, the brewery out of California makes one called Ode Tart, which is great. They have the brewery has their own sour division called Brewery Tarot, and they make things like the Ode Tart. They make one. They actually make a sour stout that's very much like a Flanders that
Wow.
they call Tart of Darkness, and then they have another one that's it's like a style in between the two that they call Gypsy Tart, which is another fantastic one. Trying to think, obviously Rodenbach, and then if you're into like beers from like the Netherlands, there's Omer van der Ginst Brewery. They make one called Van der Ginst Ruud Brewen. So
Yep.
it's decent. I believe that's how you pronounce. I don't know. I'm probably pronouncing that one wrong too, but
Yeah, I think I've had the Vandergins before. An Oud is slightly different than a Flanders Red, so it's an old brown. So they typically are a little bit more on the brown side, and they have a lot more of the dark fruit.
gotcha.
Yeah, there's like I said, there's a few Ontario breweries that are doing it well. I'm just trying to think out west. I mean, there's a brewery in BC called Daggerad that does nothing but Belgian styles, and they do some amazing beers out there. I'm sure they've got a Flanders Red. The thing with a Flanders Red is you have to be able to take time. Amsterdam did one a few years ago, I think. But if you want to do a Flanders Red well, you've got to have some barrels and you've got to be able to age it. So I know that Bench Brewing has got those wooden footers that are the big barrels that they age in. Guys out in Halifax, Two Crows, they have footers as well, and they do a lot of Belgian style beers.
Yeah, and it's always cool to see those just giant barrels.
Yeah,
It's like I want one of those in my garage.
that would be a problem, though. I think.
I mean, I wouldn't have.
It would be a consumption problem.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is that. Yeah, I just have to have one heck of a party after all this.
Yeah. You just have to be patient too.
Right. So, if people are interested in the beer sommelier course, and they think you might be a good fit for them personality wise for a teacher, where would they find the information?
Well, you can go to tfkbeer.com. All of our classes are listed on there, and we start off with level 1, which is a good introductory program. It's not too simple. It's got some complexity to it. We teach them in classroom. We do it online. We do it remotely. We've got a class coming up at Clifford in September in Hamilton, one in Toronto as well. And then, it's sort of a slow back to normal for everybody these days, but found typically a lot more interest in the online in the last year or so. But we've got tons of information on our website that you can go back and forth. You can find out about draft beer, about beer and food pairings. There's like all kinds of stuff on there, and then the classes are there as well. So
cool. Yeah, excellent. I mean, I'm all for people expanding their knowledge. I've actually looked into taking those courses myself. It's just a matter of finding the time with everything else I'm doing.
Yeah.
But it is something I would like to do because I would like to increase the amount of knowledge I have. I mean, I know a little bit about a little bit of everything, and it'd be nice to increase the amount of knowledge I have when it comes to different styles of beer and pairings and things like that.
I'll tell you what, Rob, if you can find like 3 hours in September on every Tuesday night in September, then you can be my guest at the Clifford one.
I'll take you up on that because I could make time. I don't really have a whole lot going on. I mean, obviously, who does these days? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, things are going back to normal, but they're not there yet. But yeah, I mean, that'd be awesome. I'd love to sit in, even if it's just to audit. I mean,
yeah, no, you know what? I'm happy to let you take it. I got a great instructor. His name's Scott Boyle. He's known as the Bald Beer Guy. And then Matt Zaratsky is one of my lead instructors. He's the GM at Clifford as well. So you'd have some good people out there. And I'm
Excellent.
teaching mainly level 2, 3, and 4 now. So
The stuff not for newbies. Got it.
yeah.
Excellent. And it might actually be an opportunity for me to find a couple more people to be on the show.
Yeah. Those guys are great. Like they have a ton of knowledge, both of them.
Yeah, and Clifford makes great beer. I've never been to their facility, but I hear it's nice from several of my friends. One of my friends who's actually been on the show, Nick, he's got his level 1 certification.
Yeah, I know Nick.
Yeah, he works at Stonehooker Brewing now.
Yeah.
Yes. So he really enjoyed the class. And he wants to take his certification to the next level. It's just a matter of now with work and things like that for him trying to find the time. But
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to sit in on the classes and see what's what and increase my knowledge. That'd be awesome.
Cool.
Awesome. We've come to the end of another episode. I'd like to thank my guest Roger for graciously accepting the invite and being on the show. If you like this video, please click like, please subscribe. And if you want to be notified when new episodes come out, click the little bell, because that's the thing you have to do to be notified of YouTube stuff. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, things for me, things for Roger, please put them in the comments below, and I'll be sure to forward them on if they're not for me. If you have a suggestion for a beer or a beer style you'd like to have me and a guest, or just me, who knows, or if you want to be on the show and talk about a style of beer, please leave a comment below, and I'll be sure to talk to you. Other than that, until next time, I'm Rob from the internet. Cheers.
Thanks, Rob.
You bet. What?